You don't belong here." My father didn't raise his voice when he said it. He didn't need to. The way he said it made it sound settled, like a decision that had been made years ago and simply repeated tonight for consistency. I heard it from the hallway before I even stepped fully into the dining room. Someone laughed softly, not loudly enough to challenge him, just enough to agree. I paused at the doorway for half a second, my hands still resting against the frame, letting the words land exactly where they always did. Then I smiled, because tonight, it didn't matter. I stepped inside. The room was already alive with movement, glasses clinking, low conversations layered over each other, polished shoes shifting across hardwood floors. The long dining table in the center was filled with people who carried weight in my father's world. Investors, partners, people who knew how to nod at the right moments. No one turned when I entered, and that wasn't new. I set my bag down near the wall, took off my coat, and moved past the table without hesitation. I didn't stop to greet anyone. I didn't wait to be acknowledged. I already knew where I was supposed to sit. The small folding table near the kitchen, just far enough away to be separate, just close enough to be visible. Exactly where I had always been placed. My name is Clara Whitmore. I'm 26 years old. I live alone in a modest apartment on the north side of Chicago. I drive a car that blends into parking lots. I dress in simple colors that don't draw attention. None of that is accidental. Everything about me has been built to disappear. And tonight, that decision was about to change everything. I sat down, smoothing the sleeve of my jacket, feeling the thin edge of a folder inside my bag press lightly against my side. It was ordinary, plain, forgettable to anyone else. To me, it was timing. Across the room, my father, Edward Whitmore, 55, senior investment director, stood at the head of the main table. He had that same posture he always carried, shoulders back, voice steady, confidence practiced over years of being listened to. He raised his glass and began speaking, the room naturally quieting around him. He talked about discipline, about ambition, about building something real in a world that rewards strength. He spoke like someone who believed he had earned everything in front of him. I watched him carefully, because the truth was, I already knew something he didn't, something no one in that room knew. And it was already moving. My stepmother drifted beside him, smiling in that controlled way she had perfected, touching shoulders, laughing softly at the right moments. My stepbrother leaned in whenever my father spoke, nodding along as if agreement had become second nature. And then there was the guest that mattered most, Richard Hale, the CEO, the reason this dinner carried weight. My father turned slightly toward him mid-sentence and added, almost as an afterthought, "Don't mind her," nodding faintly in my direction. "She keeps things simple, doesn't really get involved in what we do." A few quiet smiles followed. I didn't react. I reached for my glass, took a small sip, and placed it back down carefully. Because reacting would have been the wrong move. Silence, I had learned, is only weakness when you don't understand it. For me, it had become something else entirely. 4 years ago, I stopped trying to be seen in this room, stopped explaining myself, stopped waiting for acknowledgement that never came. Instead, I left, quietly. No argument, no scene, just absence. And in the space they didn't notice I left behind, I built something. It didn't look like much at the beginning, just numbers on a screen, small investments, long nights where no one questioned my decisions. Then those decisions started working. One opportunity turned into three into 10 into something that no longer needed to be explained to anyone. I didn't tell them. Not because I wanted to hide, because I understood something my father never had. Power doesn't need to announce itself. Sometimes it waits. My phone lit up beside my hand. I didn't pick it up immediately. I already knew what it was. Still, I turned it just enough to see the screen. One message. 4 words. Its release, effective now. I placed the phone face down. Again. Across the room, nothing had changed. My father was still speaking, still certain, still in control. But something had already shifted. It just hadn't reached them yet. It came quietly, the way real change always does. My stepbrother noticed first. He had been scrolling through his phone lazily, half engaged in the conversation, when something caught his attention. His thumb stopped moving, his expression tightened slightly. He read something once, then again. Then leaned toward Richard Hale, turning the screen so he could see. I watched from my corner, carefully, because moments like this, they matter. Richard took the phone, read, once, then again, and something changed. Not dramatically, but unmistakably. The calm composure he carried, something practiced, something deliberate, shifted at the edges. He looked up, slowly, and his eyes moved across the room, past my father, past the people still talking, past everything that had mattered seconds ago, until they stopped on me, sitting quietly at the folding table, exactly where they had left me. He set his glass down, slowly, deliberately, and stood. The room didn't understand yet, but it felt it. That shift in energy when something changes and no one knows why. My father noticed. "Richard," he said, a faint edge of confusion entering his voice. But Richard didn't answer. He was already walking across the room, past the main table, past the people who had defined the conversation, until he stopped in front of me. At the folding table, the one no one ever acknowledged, he extended his hand. Miss Whitmore. Not Clara. Not her. Not the daughter who didn't belong. Miss Whitmore. The room fell silent, completely. I stood, calm, controlled, and shook his hand. My father turned fully now, confusion sharpening into something else. "Clara, what is this?" For the first time in years, he didn't sound certain. I reached into my bag, pulled out the folder, and placed it on the table, then slid it across, not toward Richard, toward my father. He looked down at it, then back at me. "What is it?" he repeated. "Open it," I said. He hesitated, then did. The first page wasn't financial. It wasn't corporate. It wasn't anything he expected. It was a letter, handwritten, my mother's. The room didn't understand what they were looking at, but he did. His hands stilled. His eyes moved slowly across the page, and something shifted in his expression, quietly, deeply. There was one line I knew he would stop at, one line that mattered more than anything else. "Build something so strong, Clara, that no one can ever decide your place for you again." He read it twice, then looked up, and for the first time in my life, he didn't look in control. I spoke, calmly. "The firm you work for," I paused, "has been acquired." Silence. "My firm acquired it." No one moved. No one spoke. "My position is managing partner." A glass shifted somewhere across the room. My stepmother's smile disappeared. My stepbrother looked down at the floor. My father stared at me like he was trying to understand something that no longer fit his version of reality. "How?" he asked. Not angry. Not yet. Just disoriented. "I built it," I said. "I didn't rush, didn't explain, didn't soften it." Quietly, Richard stepped back slightly, giving space to the moment because he understood something my father was only beginning to. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't luck. This was deliberate. "Effective immediately," I continued. "There's a restructuring." I held his gaze. "Your position is being eliminated." The words didn't need emphasis. They didn't need volume. They just needed to exist. And they did, right there. In the room he had controlled for years, He shook his head slightly, looked down at the paper again, then back at me. You approve this? Yes. A pause. I reviewed your severance personally. Another pause. It's fair. That word mattered. Fair. Because nothing before this had been. The room stayed silent. No one interrupted. No one stepped in. Because for the first time, no one knew how. I picked up my bag, closed it, and stood there for a moment, looking at him. Not as someone asking to be seen, not as someone waiting for approval, but as someone who had already decided who she was. You taught me something, I said quietly. That made him look up again, confused. What? He asked. How to sit in a room and say nothing. A pause. And how powerful that can be. I let that sit. Then added, you just never asked what I was doing with that silence. No one moved. No one spoke. I turned toward the door, walked out. No raised voices, no argument, no scene. Just quiet. Because that's how it had always been. Only now. The quiet belonged to me. Outside, the night air felt different, cooler, clearer. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying anything I hadn't chosen. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel relief. I felt something else. Something simpler. Control. Because sometimes you don't need to fight. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be louder than the room. Sometimes you just need to build something so undeniable that when the truth arrives, it speaks for you. And when it does, everything changes for them. And finally, for you.